Thank you. Good evening,
Welcome.
everyone. This is Ron. Hope everyone had a good Monday, good start to their week. Uh, and as we do every week, we'll start off with questions. See if anyone has any questions or concerns, anything you've seen, uh, anything you're concerned about, or even something from the lesson from on last few days. Anything.
Hi, Ron. Well, hi, everybody. This is Angela. I got a question. Hey, um, when you when yesterday we were discussing confusing the universe. I'm not too clear on that.
What part where we were discussing
Confusing when we send mixed signals out to the universe.
mixed signals?
I know what you're talking about.
Okay. Okay, Pastor.
I think I will make a statement. One of us, anyway. The universe is always listening.
Excuse me, Pastor. I just need you to speak up a bit louder, please.
Okay. How is that?
Um, I'll give you the okay sign in a minute after you talk.
Okay. I made a statement, or someone did, about the universe as always listening. And when we desire things, and we, in our minds, think it's not going to happen or doubt whether it will happen, that's mixed signals or mixed desires to the universe. And when we speak of universe, the universe, according to the Aramaic, also references a womb, which is translated erroneously as father. So it is no different than sending mixed messages to someone who you are asking to do something for you. You want it now, but in a few minutes you doubt whether they're coming to do it. That's what I mean by mixed messages. That's what we mean by mixed messages. Does that help you, Angela?
Yes, I got it. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Anyone else?
Perfect volume, Pastor.
Thank you. Ron? Are you muted, Ron?
I'm sorry, I was muted. I was just saying, following yesterday's lesson, I guess one of the rabbit holes, what I'll try to go down later. Uh, it's interesting to me that as they're coming after they've gone through, they being the Israelites, have gone through enslavement in Egypt, and as they're coming out, God refers to Canaan as the land of milk and honey. So we can look at that in a practical way and kind of understand what that means, land flowing with milk and honey. But I think it's something more to that. At some point, I may kind of look at that and maybe gather some information so we can have a discussion about that, because I think that's interesting as well. If there are no other questions, I do have an observation. Not only are we seeing a lot of confusion and sort of a stirring, if you will, in domestic America with fires and floods and serial killers and just stuff, but globally, there's a lot of stuff going on too. Of course, the conflict with Russia and the Ukraine. The other day that the Israelites and the Palestinians are at it again. Not to mention when Nancy Pelosi visited, was it Thailand, Pastor?
Taiwan.
Taiwan, China got upset about it. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. North Korea is still kind of stirring the pot a little bit. So, you know, I just say all that to say, keep in mind who we are. Keep your calm, keep your cool, and just breathe. And recognize that all these things have a purpose. Although I don't always know or see what they are, I trust it. So, if anybody else, Pastor, anybody want to speak to that, what you see in it, please feel free.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is what you're talking about, does that have anything to do with the Lionsgate portal? And what's going to happen as far as us entering that portal, or if we enter that portal?
I'm not familiar with the Lionsgate portal, even though I've seen that that caption over something but I didn't read it. When it comes to spiritual portals, we have entered several different portals, and we don't actually know which ones they are. However, when we look retrospectively at where we were and what we were talking about and what we saw, and look at where we are today, we know that transference has taken place, or that entrance has taken place. We are very, very aware and observant about the phases of the moon. What I mean by that is not the normal phases, but when we talk about the supermoon, when we talk about the lining up of the planets, and that happened this year, and is not expected to happen again for quite some time, according to the astronomers. However, that energy of the planets lining up is the energy that the universe, that a boom is manifesting in the earth. And that is the type of energy that is the energy that guides us, that is the energy that keeps us. Even when we are upset about something, that energy opens our eye and let us see that that's not who we are. We must trust the process, and we trust that. Does that help you, Evelyn?
Yes, it does. So have we entered a new dimension? Are we in a new dimension?
Yes, we are. We are in the age of Aquarius, and if you look at it from a spiritual perspective based on the scriptures, that's where we are. Now, this is what I want to say to every one of us. I don't want us to get caught up on whether or not we're in a portal. And the reason I say that is because all we have to do is hold on to what we know the truth to be. And Arun, our Creator, will guide us as we should go. Meaning that a portal opens, we don't know it, we just keep moving. And it doesn't matter. Why? Because every step that we make is a step towards harmony, balance in the earth. That's our desire. You cannot have balance in the earth without upheaval. You cannot build anything on the foundation that is currently there. The foundation has to be broken down, destroyed, and before another foundation of harmony and peace can be built. All the world upheaval is based upon being balanced and living in harmony. It's not just the U.S. that the problems are with. It's other nations as well. However, the U.S. is always affected by it because the U.S. have affected every country in the world, especially the countries of people of color. So I'm just riding the river. I'm in the river, and I don't get up on the banks. I just go with the flow because I trust the flow of the universe. Does that help you?
Yes. And that's what has been coming to me to just be, when you're talking about the upheavals, are you talking about like the flooding, the fires, the political stuff that we see on a everyday basis?
Talking about not just the stuff in the U.S. I'm talking about the excessive heat that's in Europe. I'm talking about the trip that Nancy Pelosi took. I'm talking about the attitude of arrogance that the Chinese is putting forth, just like the attitude of arrogance that America puts forth. So these things are clashing, and they're clashing for a reason. When we talked about Roe v. Wade, what I said was that would be the best thing that could happen, overturning it. And sure enough, once it was overturned, it changed the complexion of everything. So out of this chaos comes order. We cannot have order without the chaos. It's like Frederick Douglass said, you can't have the rain without getting wet. So that's where we are. We are following the flow because we don't know what comes next, but we do know that we are not supposed to shape it. Okay? Evelyn?
Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
I'm here, sweetie. Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Ron, I went down the rabbit hole too, but go ahead and see if there is anyone else who has questions.
Reverend Richard, what about the that's supposed to happen? I guess maybe last week or something about the sun and about the rays that was coming from it. What energy does that have on the earth?
The electromagnetic field that emanates from the sun always affects the earth. And when it does, it affects electronics. Now, what happened last week, I'm not familiar with. However, I do know that there are the planets, the sun, all of those have an effect on the earth. Think about this. The moon has the power, the energy to move the ocean. Think about that. The ocean responds to the energy from the moon. So how does that work? I don't know how it works, but I do know that it is the energy from our Creator. Also, the moon, in places where it has not been tampered with, 28 days for the minister cycle is counted by the moon. And it started with the Cushite women counting the days when they were pregnant, or the days when, I'm sorry, not the days when they're pregnant, the days when they wanted, when their cycle was on and they wanted to be impregnated. They did that so often until from that came mathematics, because they used the numbers for other things. So, bottom line, the sun and the planets are always active with with the earth, and because of this desire to be one with the universe, to be one with a boom, to be one with our Creator, because of that desire, the energy of our Creator is responding to that. There has never been an upheaval like we are seeing now. However, if we think about it, this is what we desired years ago, long before there was a Donald Trump. This was our desire, and we know that he was the best thing to happen. He is the catalyst that started the upheaval for the purpose of exposing everything that is evil, evil meaning unright. With that exposure comes a desire for peace and harmony, because people are exhausted from having to barely make it in this earth, from having to get rich people richer and they get poor. People are tired of that. So that energy is causing the upheaval. Does that help you?
Yes, thank you.
You're quite welcome. Ron?
Yes, sir. Anyone else? Any questions, comments? I have another one. I guess I saw something that kind of, well, no, not kind of, kind of disturbed me a little bit and caused me to look further. But I saw this article online talking about black women being sterilized against their will, and it started, post slavery, and it started before the abortion issue became an issue, and upon further investigation, it has been something that has gone on
For years.
since post-slavery until even now, the 21st century. And that I thought was, that was an eye-opener to me. And what they have done is black women that are in prison, if they, for whatever reason, have to have surgery, they're performing hysterectomies on, and I don't know how they select who to do it to, and I did not even look to see what states we're talking about. But I thought that was something else that we need to bring to the forefront. And it all goes back. It all, to me, is all a part of the Roe versus Wade thing. The push is for white women to have babies and women of color not to have babies. So I just thought that was interesting. There's so many things going on right now that we're not aware of. So, Pastor, or anybody, do you want to comment on that?
Definitely do. Fannie Lou Hamer. If you don't know who that is, Google her name after we get off the phone. Fannie Lou Hamer was from Mississippi, and she became one of the most forceful, one of the most powerful advocates for African women in particular, but for Africans across the board. What started her to move in that direction? She went to a doctor in Mississippi in 1961, and she went for a hysterectomy. The white doctor ended up sterilizing her. And the doctor, I'm sorry, she didn't go for a hysterectomy. She ended up getting a hysterectomy, unwanted hysterectomy. She got that because the white doctor did it and told her that he did that surgery for the purpose that she came in, and that was for a uterine cyst. It was so prevalent in Mississippi, they called it the Mississippi appendectomy. That was the code for it in the African community in the Deep South. Every state, especially in the Deep South, had that practice. The reason they had that practice after the enslavement of us is because during slavery, they were never going to close their womb because it was money to them. After that, they felt like Africans were going to outnumber them in this country. That's when the sterilization started. And that's the reason that it started. And as early as 1857, there were advocates who said abortion should not be performed. And the reason is the same reason today. Because, as Ron stated, the desire of those who are in power is for white women to force them to have babies in order to stem the direction of this country. And that is, this country is moving into the direction of what is called browning of America. And that scares them to death. Any questions about that? Or does that speak to, Ron, what you brought up?
Most certainly. The case, I remember looking at this woman, she killed her husband. She ended up in prison because her husband was very abusive, and she killed him in self-defense, and she ended up in prison for it. But they performed this on her, and some of the side effects and things, she once she realized what happened to her, some of the other women in the prison realized it was the same symptoms they had. So that's when it really, hey, this is happening every time one of us goes in there, to complain about something. This is what they're doing to us. So, this is like I say, happening even in the 21st century. This is not just something that is so far away. So, that's exactly why. And the cause has not changed. The cause of it is still the same. But again, it's one of those things I think we needed to talk about and just put out there.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
If not, Ron, I want you to introduce something.
Okay.
Yesterday, Kathy raised a question about generational curses. And after we ended, it was actually on my mind. And after talking with her, I found it in Numbers 14 and 18. And she found it in Exodus, what was that? Exodus 7, I believe, 34 and 7. Kathy, are you on?
Yes, I'm on 34 and 7.
Okay. However, it was in reference to two different things. The one that I found that I read in Numbers was dealing with the attitude of the Hebrews when Joshua went into the promised land and came back with a good report while others didn't. And there was a rebellion against going into the land. And as a result of that, the Creator Yahweh says that generations the father would be punished, as well as the third and fourth generation. Not exactly those words, but that's exactly what he was saying. So I want to address that, and I want to address it in pretty much a definitive way, because in order to find out the reality of what happened in this particular scripture or at this particular point, we have to keep reading past the concept of the generations being cursed. Okay? So, are there any questions? Or Kathy, what you found was in reference to it was in Exodus. So let's see what it was in reference to. And I want to pull this together, if I may.
Are you wanting me to read it? Because I don't have it in front of me.
Oh, okay. I wanted you to speak to what it was in reference to. Why did that come about? So in Numbers, Yahweh said it was going to destroy the people. And Moses intervened. And the intervention of Moses was on behalf of the people. And what Moses said was, if you do that, then people will say you could not keep us in the wilderness. You couldn't protect us in the wilderness. Moses also asked Yahweh for forgiveness on behalf of the people. Now this is the kicker. If you look at it, you will find where Yahweh actually did that. Yahweh forgave what the actions that they were involved in, and that was because of Moses' plea. Yahweh says in that 20th verse, I have pardoned them according to your word. But indeed, as I live, all the earth will be filled with the glory of the Lord. Now, that is the reason I have issues with this thing called a generational curse. Because when it actually talks about it, it does not call it a generational curse. It is spoken of as the Lord visiting death on the Hebrews because they rebelled against the wishes of Yahweh. Any questions about that?
Pastor, I have it now. I have it pulled up in Exodus, and it's basically talking about the second tablets that were written after the first stones were broken. Moses is going up to have the second tablets written again. And then it says in the 7th verse, keeping mercy for thousands, forgiving iniquities and transgressions and sins, and that will by no means clear the guilty, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children and upon the children's children unto the 3rd and 4th generations.
Thank you. Do you want to speak further on that?
I just wanted to lay that out there because the parallel that we were drawing yesterday was, well, first of all, the generations. What does that mean? Does generations even mean what we think it means? And we've talked about, am I saying it right when I said, was it Shem that was the 4th son that we've been talking about? And if we look at the 4th generation, we didn't know what the parallel was there. And then sin, inequity, curse, all of these. But when you talk about when you've heard it spoken of in the traditional church about the generational curses, or even in evangelical settings, they usually go to this and call this particular scripture and the one you're referencing the basis for talking about generational curses. And I found it interesting that even I referenced that yesterday, but when I looked at it later, that word isn't even used there. So I just want clarity there and understanding of what this is all talking about, because I don't think it means necessarily what we think it means.
Thank you.
Did anybody look up generation? What does that mean?
Go ahead. The word generation is the key to it all.
Okay.
Generation does mean a lineage. It does speak to a lineage. However, it also speaks to accountability, and that's based on his root. So what was happening is Yahweh was saying that he was going to hold the fathers accountable until the 3rd generation and the 4th generation. Accountable for what? Accountable for the rebellion. Accountable for what they were doing with the golden calf when Moses broke the first set of stones. That accountability. Does that help, Ron?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Now, when we look at these events, they speak louder than the words on the page. Moses' name speaks to draw out. Understanding that the scriptures are allegories. How or what spiritual message is hidden in this allegory? This allegory, as well as the one that Kathy read, speaks to rebellion. One speaks to rebellion against going into the land of promise, which means that a change of consciousness was rebelled against. In the case where the tablets were, the inhabitants at the base of Mount Sinai made a decision that they were going to make their own God. Why? Because Moses had been on the mountaintop so long they thought he was dead. And when he came down and saw what was happening, he was angry. And he broke the tablets. What is that speaking to? When the Creator gives a message or understanding from the spiritual perspective and is offered to the people and they reject it, they are not going to have the future that they think they are. They will be stuck in a rut until they embrace the principles that were sent to mankind. And those principles are called the Ten Commandments, but really they are the 10 utterances. And some time ago, we expanded on those. I think it was, Barbara expanded on those. And we understood the spiritual nature of them, and still do. So when they rebelled against the principles, that's what caused this today. There is tremendous rebellion, and has been for centuries, against the utterances, against everything that has been written allegorically in the scriptures. And it has been used throughout the centuries, especially in charismatic and evangelical churches, to scare people. Tell them that you are going to be cursed, but not only you, but your generations, the third generation and even the fourth generation. That could not be further from the truth. So when you look at the scripture in Numbers, where it was about the consciousness, if you look at the concordance for 14 and 18, you will not see the word generations there. The last word is an italics in the Bible, meaning that it was added. So that means that consciousness and embracing the principles are primary to being one with our Creator. And that has not happened. And the reason it has not happened is because the Catholic Church, along with all of the branches that came out of it, used the scriptures differently than they were intended to be. Religions were created, racism was justified, anger, control and manipulation of females was justified with the scriptures. Now where we are is in the process of unraveling the mysteries of the scriptures. When preachers are preaching and they talk about the mysteries of the scripture, they never tell you what they are. They just tell you they're mysterious. The mystery of the scriptures is hidden in plain sight. The mystery of the scripture is based upon understanding the spiritual story behind the allegory. This does not happen unless you are committed to a journey of truth. When you are committed to a journey of truth, as far as we were, when we embarked on this journey, it was difficult. We were tried at every corner, lambasted every opportunity others got, told that we were not good Baptists, whatever that means. So we endured that. And we studied everything. We did research on everything. And that only increased our desires for balance in this earth. It also opened us up to receive an understanding of what the scriptures are saying from our Creator. And that is the reason when we open the scriptures up and we see that they are about humanity as a whole. It is not about a Moses, it's about the effort to take out of people the religious principles that have kept them in bondage. And they resist it. Resistance remains until danger, hunger, or the threat of death at the hands of another approaches us. When people are threatened with losing their lives, they look for something else. When COVID first came into this place called the U.S., people were at home. And as a result of that, they were watching the news. And George Floyd was killed, and other men, African men, were killed by policemen. That was nothing new to us. However, it was to those who have been so focused on what they can get as opposed to being focused on the righteousness that they and others and all of us should be seeking. That's the reason that we saw an overwhelming majority of Caucasian Europeans protesting about what happened to George Floyd. It was not endemic to America at all. It was a pandemic of protest because it was all over the world. And everywhere we looked, the overwhelming majority of the protesters were European. It was different than the civil rights movement. The reason it was different from the civil rights movement is because the civil rights movement was based upon enslavers giving some freedom to those who had been enslaved. That's the reason it didn't work. Because it's too easy to change the law or to gut the law. However, in the case of protest with George Floyd, this was an organic movement orchestrated by our Creator. And that is the reason it cannot be stopped. It's continuously opening eyes, even though the people who are involved are not aware of what they are doing. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we bring harmony and peace and balance into the earth for the benefit of humanity, so that we can live beyond the animalistic attitudes and live according to humans, the human principles that our Creator has given us as a guide to how we interact with each other and how we interact with the earth itself. Any questions or comments?
I don't necessarily have a comment on what you just said, but I want to back up and look at Curse a little closer, if that's okay.
Oh.
There are certain terms that we look at that does something to us, and curse is one of them, and that's not understanding what a curse is according to the scriptures. It's different than somebody saying going to heaven, or going to hell for that matter, or we there are biblical terms that we don't understand that sort of keep us in line or stay in a certain way, act in a certain way. That, if you will, is a curse. Now let me explain what I'm saying. Since we the slave was allowed to read or go to church, and before they were free, there was such thing as church, and what you were taught in church was how to be a slave. You were taught how they would justify your being a slave and how you were supposed to be happy because that was your purpose in life. So even after the freedom, so-called freedom, people still felt enslaved, and the same God that we were introduced to in slavery, we were still serving to this day. The church still serves, and those terms I'm talking about, the preachers use to keep people in line because there's a lack of understanding. A curse is something that is put, says that this is going to cover you or detach something from you or hide from you. And because we did not, as a people, seek truth, the curse is we've been caught in religion. We have not moved since slavery, as far as being spiritual, I mean. Yes, technology. Yes, we can read and write. Yes, we go to college now. We're educated. But spiritually, we are in the same place. The truth is covered over. The truth is being hidden from us. And what we are attempting to do now is remove that veil. So when you look at curse and understand it from that perspective, what you see is it really has nothing to do with time. It has nothing to do with as we know it. It has everything to do with when you turn aside or when you make up that, have that inward conversation or that inward drive to look for the more that is inside of you, that has been screaming or pushing at you for generations. So this when we think about this and talk about it from generation to generation, if you look at it from a spiritual perspective, it may only last, that generation may only last one day if you turn to see who you are. So it is not a time thing that I have to wait 30 or 40 years or whatever generation is supposed to be. The generation is when I turn to see who I am. And that could be 10 minutes or 10 years. Does that make sense at all?
Yes.
Yes, it does. It does. Let me add something that you said something, Ron, that triggered. I did not talk about accountability. What you were talking about the curse and talking about knowing who you are. Whether we pursue the journey of knowing who we are or not, accountability is going to be given. We are going to be held accountable for whether we've chosen to travel the journey of truth or not. Accountability is not a negative thing. Accountability is also when you are pursuing truth and you begin to see spiritual things that you never saw before. You begin to be shown what's in the scripture spiritually as opposed to literally. So accountability works both ways. And when that generation thing speaks to accountability, And the curse thing, as Ron said, is used against us. Us meaning all humans, all people on the earth, because a curse worldwide has grown to mean something that bad is going to happen to you. So all I wanted to drive home is, either way, we're going to be held an account for our desires and the actions we take. Thank you.
What Ron is saying leads right back to what we were talking about Noah and unright thoughts. They can enslave you or curse you.
Yes.
Same kind of thing.
I have a question though. Why is it, pastor and teachers and everybody, why is it that we didn't see the truth of that was not, why couldn't we see that when they would say something meant, when they would say something like, for instance, curse, why is it that we didn't see it then, that it was something from the does that make sense? Hold on.
I didn't understand the question. Can you ask?
Okay, my earbud. I said, why now that we see that everything that the Europeans told us was totally the opposite? Means something bad.
Well, the reason we didn't see it is because we weren't looking for it. We were only doing Sunday school, Bible study, and we weren't looking for it. Preachers were preaching the same thing over and over, and we weren't looking for it. However,
And they had us to believe. I'm sorry, go ahead.
However, when we started searching the scriptures in honesty, when the people committed themselves to this search of the scriptures, they did it without knowing where it was going to lead us. They did it on the basis of desire, and they did it in spite of what I said. When you see God, not going to look godly, or is not going to look as we think God is. And surely that's what is happening to us now. That's what has happened. So you have to have a desire, and that desire must be manifested by the work you put in for the purpose of humanity. None of us are doing this to write books, to profit from it in a financial way. We are doing this to profit from it in a way that all humans can profit from it, and that is loving kindness. Hope that helps.
Yeah, because I know I can't free myself until I free others. So
You're right.
I hear you.
You also have to keep in mind what we were getting on Sundays, especially our fathers and grandfathers, when people only had one pair of shoes, and their hope was on what they were hearing coming out of the book, and that's all they had. So they clung to that, and so in a lot of ways, I guess I don't blame them for what their vision looked like. They read what they could see, so here we are. I really, my thinking is, I really see us as one people, one person, and we are extensions of who they are. and we are the truth that will come in the earth prior to the next generation. But it's all part of the same breath that was enslaved, that was in Africa before slavery. Part of my quest now to look at this is what we looked at the last couple of days. I found really intriguing, and one of the things I found intriguing about it is the immaturity of Ham. I want to look at that some more. I want to know, and I'm talking spiritually here, how that affects us today. So when you look at that part of it and look at the Africans' progression over the years, to me it kind of lays a little understanding there, but I don't see it all yet. So we could see what I think we were supposed to see at that time. I think we're right now are seeing for everybody. If you can grasp that, if you can see that.
I can see that, Ron.
Yeah.
This is my belief that understanding the spiritual message that's in the allegory, as far as I know, and as much as I have read, it has led me to believe that this is the first time that the scriptures have been decoded to the extent that they are bringing about a change in a powerful spiritual way. And it's a great time for us to be living to experience what is taking place. Thank you.
Yes, I agree. I agree. Questions or comments, y'all? Kathy, does that help with your question in numbers?
Yes, it did. I was looking at it in Exodus, and Pastor was looking at it in Numbers. But it did because that's what has always been called the generational curse. And I'm like, well, how do we arrive at that? Where does that even come from? And the clarity that was brought to it tonight clears it up a lot. It's yet another tactic in religion to just keep you in a place of bondage and not understanding who you are. And so I think what we've discussed tonight brought a lot of clarity to it. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Yeah, I really think that all of our questions, especially the questions, comes from the universe. I really do. When we talk about speaking for all of mankind, I really believe that. And so when we unravel things, especially things that have been misunderstood for so long, that is just an awesome feeling to me. So, yeah, thank you. Anyone else, questions or comments? Are we done?
I am, unless there are questions or comments.
Well, I am as well. Yeah, I do have anything come up, questions, comments, please jot them down this week. And I really look forward to Saturday, Sundays, and Mondays. And so I appreciate this. I thank you all. Thank you for the question. Thank you for your energy. And this helps me get through my week. There's nothing else. Have a great rest of Monday and a good week. And hope to see you next Saturday at 10 a.m.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ron.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good night.
See all good people later.
Thank you.